Consensual, non-monogamous. Monogama. Monogama. I need to come out of the closet. I need to admit to you something that very few people know about me, but it is important that you do. I am not monogamous. I do have a partner. I am married to that partner. And we do not practice monogamy. We practice something else, something that falls under the umbrella of consensual non-monogamy. And today I'm going to talk about consensual non-monogamy. I'm going to discuss what it is, what it isn't, and whether or not it might be right for you and your relationship. So before you decide this is not for you and you close the window, and I totally respect it, non-monogamy is not for everyone. It's seriously not. I would not recommend it to all people. But there are things that you can learn from me and from my non-monogamy experience and from the overall umbrella of consensual non-monogamous people. And if you are willing to stay tuned and hear me out, I think you will gain something that could be beneficial for your relationship, whether it's monogamous or not. Hi, I'm sex and relationship coach Caitlin V, and this is my channel where I discuss all things sex and relationship related. And this one is really close and really dear to my heart. In fact, I was in the middle of reading a phenomenal book called The Ethical Slut, which is part of the canon of consensual non-monogamy literature, when I met and started dating my partner. I was in the middle of reading that book, and I was very clear with him from day one, I don't think that I want to be monogamous. I was 27 at the time, and what I said was, I'm pretty sure I don't want to just have sex with one person for the rest of my life. That's all that meant to me at the time, but he needed to know, I needed to state that. It was something that I was very clear on, and I was very fortunate. I was fortunate to be clear on that from an early age and from an early time in life. And yes, 27 is kind of early. A lot of people don't discover this until they've been married in a monogamous relationship for 20 years, and suddenly they're in their 40s or their 50s, and they're like, is this all there is? And again, if that's you, I'm not casting any judgment at all. I think that monogamy is a beautiful standard for a relationship. And I think if you agreed to hold a monogamous standard in your relationship, you should do your best to uphold that. I also know that it's unrealistic to spend 30, 40, 50 years with the same person and never be at least tempted to go outside of your relationship. That would be non-consensual, non-monogamy. We're gonna make some distinctions later on. But 50 years is a long time to be intimate with just one person. All the intelligence that we have about how the human species evolved, how Homo sapiens sapiens came to be, suggests that we probably mated with multiple people throughout our very short lives for the first several 100,000 years that our species and our predecessors were mating in the way that we know now. It's really important that we understand that biologically, it's not a bad, shameful, or wrong thing to desire to have sex with multiple partners in our lifetime. It was very easy in Darwin's time and Victorian times to say that the human being did not need more than just one partner, or more than a limited amount of sexual experiences, or that sex was just limited to procreation. The truth is, sex feels good. You probably wouldn't be watching my channel if you didn't agree with me on that very core component. That very basic principle of sex is that it feels good, and it can feel good to involve other people, whether that's in real life or in fantasy. But it feels the best to involve other people when we are being clear and transparent and acting within our integrity and within the integrity of our relationship, aka consensual. So the key term to get to know here is CNM, which stands for consensual non-monogamy. This is different than non-monogamy. Infidelity, cheating, those things are non-monogamy, yes, but they're not consensual. Consensual means that it is done with the permission and with the knowledge of all of the parties involved. Everyone is consenting, which means that it is free of coercion, free of force, and taking place transparently. And if you're thinking to yourself right now, that sounds too good to be true, I assure you it is not. The problem, of course, is that when we hear about non-monogamy gone wrong, we're almost always hearing about it from the perspective of someone cheated and they broke up a family, a homewrecker, someone who lost their wife and their children because they were seeing sex workers. That is the story that we typically hear. But what you don't often hear is about the satisfied husband who has a satisfied girlfriend and comes home to his wife who doesn't want to have sex and has never wanted to have sex. And they're able to keep their marriage together and raise their children as a family because he gets his sexual needs met elsewhere. Or the wife who is kinky and she very desperately wants to act as a submissive for another partner, but her husband is just not able to give that to her. And she feels that she's not going to be satisfied in life without it. She's able to go to the dungeon, have a dom sub arrangement with someone there. She gets all of her kink and fetish needs met, and she comes home and she's a spectacular wife and a loving partner because she's supported in getting her needs met and not shamed for having them. There are a lot of different ways that consensual non-monogamy can look in your relationship, and I'm going to actually go through a whole list, and I'm going to walk you step by step on A, how to know if consensual non-monogamy might be right for you, and B, if you think it is right, how to enter into those waters without risking unnecessary pain and hurt. And I'm not here to tell you that it's not going to cause you pain or hurt, but that pain or that hurt is definitely going to cause you to grow. And I have found that if you are interested, as I am, in sex and intimacy as a form of personal development, as a place where we enter that causes us to get better, to be a better human being by allowing us to pinpoint and address our insecurities, by giving us a format and a place where we can expand ourselves outside of our comfort zone. There's no better way to engage with that part of your development than by thoughtfully and purposefully planning a non-monogamous relationship that is right for you, or if you're in a monogamous relationship, planning and expanding your sexual reach, expanding in your pleasure and your eroticism. This is, in my opinion, the highway to personal development. If you want to really be a master of your life in this lifetime, well, I think this is a pretty decent way to get there. And that's because of all the many, many ways that it can challenge you. Here's one thing that I find interesting about consensual non-monogamy. A lot of people already fantasize or engage with some form of consensual non-monogamy. When we fantasize about inviting a third into our bedroom, when we have dirty talk that talks about someone else or couple that we're interested in having sex with, when we even watch porn to a certain degree, it's like we're inviting other people into our sexual relationship. So you might already be engaged in some form or another, but why would you engage at all? Well, outside of the fact that it challenges us and pushes us to grow, it also is the spice of life. Having multiple or different partners is a key to the novelty that keeps sexuality exciting and interesting. And the thought of being able to have another partner, for many people, even if they never actually act on it, that alone in and of itself is inspiring. It inspires us to remain attractive, to remain sharp, to remain flirtatious. Like just the thought that your partner may want to engage with somebody else often inspires me to be the best possible partner, because I feel like I'm keeping his interest because he's not trapped to me. And with the golden handcuffs removed, there's a lot more freedom. And the thing is that when there's no freedom, we're essentially smothering the flames of desire. So if you find yourself in a relationship or a marriage that just doesn't feel that spicy anymore, where you feel like the flames of desire have gone out, they're no longer being fanned, sometimes the introduction of even the thought of another person is all that it takes to light those puppies back up. So what are some of the common consensual non-monogamy scenarios? Well, there is sex clubs where you might just watch and be watched by other couples. There's swinging and partner swapping. There's cuckolding and hot wifing. There's threesomes and searching for a magical unicorn. Check my video out on that. There's casual sex. There's polyamory, which is having multiple emotional and sexual relationships that are concurrent. There's BDSM and the fetish kink community, which I gave you an example from earlier. There's seeing sex workers with permission, so with the blessing of one spouse or partner, giving the other spouse or partner the permission to go and hire a sex worker. And then finally, there's don't ask, don't tell with consent. This is a very common arrangement for couples in which they don't really want to know the specifics of the arrangement, but they do want their partner to know that they are free, along with the agreement of like maybe using condoms or promising to use protection or not getting involved with someone who is intimate into the couple. So like no friends. There could be some rules and some regulations around that, but after that, don't ask, don't tell. This is not all of the possible arrangements. This is a very short list. There are plenty more. Okay, but how do you know if consensual non-monogamy is right for you? Well, here is my guidance, and this is not an exhaustive list. Number one, you want to make sure that your relationship is in a good place. Non-monogamy, consensual or otherwise, does not fix relationships. It never has and it never will. Involving other people doesn't make things less complicated, and it certainly doesn't mean that they heal like that. That's not how it works. Your relationship must be in a good place for you to consensually engage in non-monogamy. It will not fix anything that is broken. Number two, don't expect to go in with a double standard. If you're going to ask for additional freedoms in your relationship, be willing to extend those to your partner. And if you're not, or you have trouble extending those, ask yourself why that is, and if that's coming from a place of real authentic integrity or if it's coming from a place of jealousy and insecurity. Number three, ask yourself honestly, do I have the emotional intelligence to withstand this relationship dynamic? It takes a whole lot more than just a great sex drive and a free calendar in order to have multiple lovers. In order to even engage in the conversation around non-monogamy, you are going to need to be very emotionally present and adept at communicating. And if you're not those things, it doesn't mean that you can't have non-monogamy. It just might mean that you need some additional help, or that you have to develop some additional skills around emotional management and communication in order to engage in that relationship dynamic and really make it work for you. Number four, be honest with yourself about both the costs and the benefits. A lot of people focus on the benefits, which is great. There's a lot of benefits, but they forget about the potential costs. Are you willing to put it all on the line? Are these benefits good enough that if these costs come to bear, you're still going to be happy with your decision? There's no right or wrong calculation there. It's just what's going to be best for you. And I will remind you that often the costs are worth the benefits, especially when the benefit is that you get to live a sexually expressed, sexually fulfilled life. It's hard to put a dollar amount, it's hard to quantify, it's hard to even qualify what being sexually expressed does for a person. It generally is so deeply tied to our soul. It's like our soul itself is being nourished. That said, there are going to be costs. Coming out and admitting that you're non-monogamous can be really looked down on. People in your life may judge you. They may even excommunicate you. They may want nothing to do with you. I have had friends say to me that they don't want my partners and my non-monogamy to mess up their relationship. I should note that that friend also cheated on their partner and that we're no longer friends for the obvious reasons. I want you to go down into the comments below and answer this very simple question. Is consensual non-monogamy something you'd be willing to explore? If it's a no, write no. Bravo, good on you, man. Way to know yourself. If it's a yes, awesome. This next part is for you. So you think that consensual non-monogamy might be right. So you think that consensual non-monogamy might be right for you. What next? Number one, get clear on what you want, what you think consensual non-monogamy can do for you, and how you think it's going to benefit you. This is going to be super helpful later for yourself and for your conversations with your partner. Number two, do your research. I cannot overstate this enough. This video is not even scratching the surface, not even a little bit, not even like with a toothpick scratching the surface of the world of consensual non-monogamy. I mentioned The Ethical Slut. There's some other great books, more than two, opening up. I recommend all three of those, and I do recommend that you read all three of those for various perspectives on non-monogamy. You really want to do a lot of research. Trust me, other people have come before you. They have made mistakes. You do not want to repeat them. The more that you study history, the less that you are doomed to repeat it. So do your research fully, deeply. Understand what you are getting into and follow the best practices from the professionals. Number three, after you have done your research, it's time to communicate with your partner. Make sure that you think about the situation from their perspective. Instead of just enforcing your perspective, really show that you have thought about their perspective, how this might influence them, what they might like and not like about this arrangement. do their research for them. You want to be able to point them to specific pieces of those books or articles or things that I mentioned earlier. Make sure that you can give them very precise examples and that you're not putting it on them to do additional work. Also, be willing to hear no. You'll probably hear some version of no. Be willing to work with that no. Become curious about that no. Say, okay, I hear you saying no to that, but what about maybe something else? And what about continuing this conversation? This is not a one and done conversation. You are going to want to have it on multiple occasions over a period of time. That's a good thing. It's going to give them more time to process, and it's going to give you more time to process as well and really think about what you're bringing to the communication. Number 4, keep the conversation moving. Do not let it lose momentum. Too many times I have heard from people that their partner said, I'll think about it, and that's where it died. I don't mean to rush anybody, but if it's really important to you, you need to keep the conversation moving, which brings me to step 5, which is calling the experts for help. Therapists that are familiar with non-monogamy, not all therapists are. Some therapists will be very non-monogamy shaming, and you don't want to work with that person. Coaches that are familiar with non-monogamy, coaches that are familiar with polyamory, sex positive and pleasure positive professionals that can help you to work out this stuff together. Which brings me to number 6, which is move at the pace of the partner who is least comfortable. You do not want to rush that person. You need to respect the person who has concerns, who is uncomfortable with the idea of non-monogamy. So while we want to keep things moving, we don't want to move faster than the least comfortable person. That's good for them, it's good for their nervous system, it's good for their ability to trust you, it's good for their ability to stay in the conversation with you instead of closing it off, saying no, and backing out completely. Which brings me to my last step, number 7, take baby steps and celebrate the heck out of them. Every single little step that you take that moves you in a direction of exploration, expansion, of personal development, of growth, celebrate it. Celebrate it big, whether it's making a dating profile on a non-monogamy dating app, or it's going out and actually having sex with another person and coming back home and it not having done any harm to your relationship. Celebrate every single thing and go over what's working constantly with each other. Every time that you leave the club or leave the dungeon or leave the party or flirt with other people, whatever it is, celebrate it. Talk to each other about what worked, what you liked, and then maybe, only if it feels right, talk about what you would do better next time. But make sure that 90% of your conversation is on what is going right. We need to constantly hear positive messages of optimism and reinforcement in order to break out of the cultural molds that so many of us were handed by our parents and their parents before them, and our culture, our society, our religious upbringing. There is nothing immoral about non-monogamy, and there's nothing immoral about consensual non-monogamy. Nothing. There's nothing wrong with you if you want to have sex with other people. That is in your genetic code. It's just how you do it. And for those of us who have been cheated on, or those of us who have experienced some non-consensual non-monogamy, there can be a bit of a bumpy road while we acclimate, but trust me, it is so worth it. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you hated it, I guess give it a thumbs down. That's fair. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. I really appreciate that. Please make sure that you are subscribed to this channel where I talk about all kinds of things, including some subjects that might push you outside of your comfort zone, but I hope you only know I do it because I love you. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you here next week. Bye!